Full time at Anfield, and it has finished Liverpool 2, Watford 0, as goals from Diogo Jota and Fabinho sent the Reds momentarily top of the Premier League. You're watching the Debrief live on the Blood Red YouTube channel, courtesy of Liverpool Echo with Patrick Smith. And I'm once again in the company of Matt Addison as we react to a huge win for the Reds. So, Matt, initial thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it wasn't the best performance. It was a kind of typical 12:30 first game after the internationals type game, wasn't it? It was, fairly uneventful. I think Watford had a couple of chances, but you always felt like Liverpool, if they needed to, could have gone up 2, 3, 4 gears. I think they were, really kind of in first gear today and did just about manage to kind of make it comfortable enough. I would have liked 1 or 2 more goals. I would have liked that second goal to come a little bit earlier, but you can't complain. Momentarily top of the league, obviously. City, as we record this, 2 goals up. De Bruyne and Ilkay Gundogan have kind of put a bit of a dampener on it. But look, we know most weeks, pretty much every game between now and the end of the year, Manchester City are going to win, aren't they? So all Liverpool can do is keep doing their own job, and they've done that already today.
Yeah, normally we always knew that City were probably going to get a result at Burnley. It looks like it is going to go their way. So it was a nice half an hour being top of the Premier League, Matt. But I'm going to move on to the players individually because for me, Thiago Alcantara stole the show today. Absolutely unbelievable performance from him. He's had a nice rest during the international break and he's come back with a bang, isn't he, Matt?
Yeah, it's odd that he's not in the Spain squad, isn't it? You'd think that somebody of his quality would be banging on the door for it. And I think, the internationals have done him, the world of good. Clearly, we know he's not got the best injury record. We know he can't play every minute of every game. But I think a game like this one today where, as I said before, Liverpool were trying to be a little bit, foot off the gas, trying to just keep the ball a little bit, trying to keep Watford moving about and keep control of the game. We know that that's what Thiago brings to the table. So, yeah, really good performance from him. Not got the stats off the top of my head, but I know there's quite a few tweets going around which, paint a pretty good picture. I think with certain stats, you can kind of paint whichever picture you want, to be honest. But I do think he was impressive. I think the eye test kind of backed that up today. And yeah, it's just a privilege to be able to watch him, isn't it? I think it's really important that Liverpool were able to give Fabinho most of today off. There's not going to be too many opportunities, but you've got those options. You've got Thiago, you've got Henderson, and then one more. Obviously, the one more, Curtis Jones today didn't particularly do that great. Had a bit of an injury, but they've got so many midfield options. But yeah, Thiago, the classiest of all of them, I would say.
Just laser-like accuracy from him as well. To be fair to Luis Enrique, he did rotate the Spain squad because they had 2 friendlies against Iceland and I think it was Albania or someone. So I think it was a pretty young rotational squad he put through. But Joe Gomez as well, Matt, at right back, someone who I have been somewhat critical of as it's not his natural position. I'd much rather see him at centre half, but he has to cover Trent. And what a performance from him again today, an unbelievable delivery as well.
Yeah, there was 2 moments that I didn't particularly like, but the rest of it, the rest of the game, I thought he was pretty spot on, to be honest, pretty perfect in a position that you say, he's not particularly natural or comfortable there. He's trying to do an impression of the best right back in the world, and obviously today that's where the goal comes from. I mean, the first goal is a brilliant bit of work from him. He's done it on a couple of other occasions and put balls in, and players didn't quite get into the right position to be able to capitalise on that. But yeah, I thought he was really, really good. There was, as I say, a couple of bits of kind of losses of concentration, not really, the things that you'd expect from him. But I think that can be expected, off the back of not having played that much football. He was coming up against a team which probably a little bit better going forward than a lot of people give them credit for. I know Roy Hodgson isn't particularly an adventurous attacking manager, but they do have 1 or 2 tricky players and decent quick forwards as well. So yeah, there was a couple of moments. Obviously, the booking, the time when he gave the ball away as well in the second half, you could do without those lapses of concentration. You could do without that little bit of a scare, but yeah, the rest of his performance I thought was pretty perfect. I thought it was interesting that Jordan Henderson seemed to really talk him through the game or shout him through the game, as it is with Jordan Henderson. He was very much in his ear all the way through the game. But yeah, it was a really good performance. I think Trent will be back for Benfica. I'd be surprised if he didn't start then. But it's been a bit of a worry, hasn't it, in the past when Trent's been injured. But against a team like Watford, I think you can certainly get away with playing Joe Gomez there. Against Manchester City, maybe wouldn't be quite so confident, but again, you wouldn't be quite as scared as what you might have been a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I think Trent definitely will be coming back in. Of course, Hendo getting picked up once again by the pitch side microphones. But it was a lovely cross from Joe Gomez and an even better headed finish from Diogo Jota with that strange, unbelievable heading ability for someone of his physique. Again, Matt, in where it hurts, great finisher, almost number 9 like for a winger.
Yeah, I feel like I say the same about him every single week. I don't think he did particularly anything else in the game. He wasn't really heavily involved. He didn't do a great deal to kind of help in the build-up play or anything, but he scores the goal which changed the game and put Liverpool in control. And when he does that, you can't really criticise him. I think that there will be games where he doesn't score and he looks a little bit anonymous, but 20 goals, I think that is now for him this season. It's a really impressive total. He's not maybe been quite as good the last few weeks as what he was earlier in the season. I think his overall performances have dropped off a little bit. But yeah, like I say, when you put the ball in the back of the net every single week, it's some skill to have, isn't it? We've seen better performances from him. We've seen him play in a slightly different role. It was interesting. He was back on that left-hand side today. We've not seen him there too often. Quite often we now see him through the middle. But yeah, didn't do a great deal other than score the winning goal or the opening goal in the game. So I don't really want to criticize him too much. And yeah, as long as he does that a few more times before the end of this season, I think he'll play a huge role in what Liverpool have done, really. I mean, you look at what Mohamed Salah has done this season, but again, it's not been the best run of form for him. Didn't particularly have a great game today, I don't think. But it's not just Mohamed Salah, is it, in this Liverpool team? You've got several other players. Luis Diaz, we didn't even see off the bench today. So, we know that the depth and the quality that they've got to have somebody who can, when Salah doesn't score, when Mane doesn't score, you've got that third option to come in and do that. So, yeah, all positive, really, even though it wasn't a game which I'm sure he'll look back and remember too much apart from that one header.
I mean, it is an interesting one with Jota, isn't it? Because he maybe doesn't contribute or get involved as much as other players on the ball, taking players on team link-up. But he always seems to score. So do you start him? Because he's guaranteed to basically score in every game, the form he's in at the moment. But of course, Mohamed Salah down near the flank, Matt, it was a pretty quiet game from him once again, wasn't it? A pretty difficult international break, obviously. Unfortunately, Egypt losing their World Cup playoff to Senegal and Sadio Mane. So is Mo a little bit downbeat after that, do you reckon?
I don't know. I don't think I'd put it down to that. I think he wasn't in the best form, was he, before the international break? I think that the last couple of goals he scored have been from penalties, if I can remember rightly. I think there's not been too many moments in Mohamed Salah's season that you'd say he wasn't, at his peak, really. I think it's understandable that you get a couple of weeks, you get 2 or 3 games where he's just not at his best. And that's, why I said before about Diogo Jota and the other players. That's why you've got those other players to be able to step up and do it in their sort of absence, really. And Salah wasn't great today, but again, you'd still play him against Benfica. You'd still start him against Manchester City because you know what he can do. You know what the opposition would feel like if Salah wasn't in that starting in the starting lineup for midweek. I'm sure that would give Benfica a massive boost. So I don't know. It's a tricky one. I would fancy him to end his goal drought sooner rather than later. But yeah, I suppose that there will be a little bit of a narrative around not maybe sulking, but is he maybe been knocked a little bit by not going through with Egypt? Has he maybe had a bit of a confidence or lack of confidence really in the last couple of weeks? Possibly that could be the case. But listen, if he scores a goal against Benfica, I think we can kind of put that narrative to bed, because that's the last thing we want, isn't it? To be having those conversations. We're having enough conversations about him and his contract and all of that stuff. I think we want to be talking, as much positive as possible going into this last bit of the season.
I mean, while it was a relatively poor performance, credit where credit's due. Hassan Kamara was absolutely brilliant for Watford today. I thought he's rapid, dealt with Mo very well, so fair play to him. But there was a strange piece of Watford defending for the penalty that was awarded. Roy Hodgson actually saying on BT Sport that he didn't think it should have been given because no one complained for it, which is a very strange take. But what on earth is he doing, Matt? Yeah,
very strange. Almost as strange as Hodgson's comments at the end. I think it was... it's a blatant penalty, isn't it? You don't always see them given. I think that's probably a better argument, that we've probably seen it once or twice this season and it hasn't been given. But that's not to say that it wasn't a penalty. I mean, he's just rugby tackled him, hasn't he, inside the penalty area. The fact that no one has complained is obviously irrelevant. It's not up to the players to give those decisions. It's up to the referee. To be honest, when I saw it in real time inside the ground, I wasn't quite sure what they were checking, what they were looking at, but when you see it back, it's pretty clear. It's an obvious penalty kick, and yeah, I'm not really too sure A, why they were complaining, or B, why Roy Hodgson thought that it changed the game, because they still would have lost 1-0 anyway. So, yeah, it was a strange one, but yeah, it made the last sort of few minutes, the stoppage time, a little bit more comfortable for Liverpool. But yeah, I'm not quite sure what I can say really, other than it was an obvious penalty, and it was a really well taken spot kick as well by Fabinho.
I mean, Hodgson must not have seen the replays by the time he did his interview, clearly, because, if anyone's seen that, it is a blatant rugby tackle on someone. But on the other dugout, Jurgen Klopp, he's now won 160 of his first 250 games. So that's more than Jose Mourinho, Alex Ferguson and Wenger in their first 250 games. So what does he need to do, Matt, to cement his place among those great managers? Is he unfortunate that City have blockaded a potential league dominance and load of titles, or is he in the conversation now as one of the all-time greats?
Yeah, no, for me, I think both him and Guardiola are definitely in that conversation. I think if they existed at different times rather than pretty much at the exact same time, I think there'd be no doubt about it. Obviously, only one team can win the Premier League title each season, so you kind of have to have someone that finishes second. But I think there was an interesting interview, I think, with The Guardian earlier this week with Aymeric Laporte talking about it and basically making that point, really, that you can have two brilliant teams, and just because City or Liverpool will finish second this season doesn't necessarily mean that whoever finishes second is not very good. It's just a case of the other team being absolutely elite. So, yeah, it's one of those. I think he's absolutely in the conversation, Jurgen Klopp. And I think by the time he leaves, he absolutely will be. I think he probably should be already. In terms of what else does he need to do? I mean, there's a big opportunity this season, obviously, isn't there, to write himself into those sorts of history books in terms of the quadruple, whatever Liverpool can do this season. I think, I'd be surprised if they didn't go on and win at least one more trophy. But yeah, he's absolutely up there, isn't he? There's no doubt. He's not going to be at Liverpool as long as what Ferguson was at United, or what Wenger was at Arsenal, or anything like that.
It would be a treat if him and Guardiola both stay for that long, though.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think you'd probably, from a Liverpool perspective, like Guardiola to move on and Klopp to stay, just to make it a little bit easier. But yeah, there's no doubt about it. They're both absolutely up there, and from a neutral's perspective within the Premier League, I'm sure it's just magnificent to watch. So yeah, be interesting to see what happens. But whether Liverpool win the quadruple or not, absolutely, Jurgen Klopp's in that conversation.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. He's definitely up there for me. But Matt, we're going to have to leave it there because that is all we've got time for, unfortunately, today. So thank you all for watching along at home. We'll be back again with a debrief on Tuesday night after Liverpool's Champions League quarter-final first leg away in Lisbon against Benfica. So until then, it's goodbye for now.